Thank you. Let me start by congratulating all the people and all the organizations who have got the awards. Very, very well deserved, and congratulations once again. I have the privilege here again to invite our learned panelists here today. So before we sort of begin, I thought it would be important and I think very relevant for us to understand the YuWaah program which Dhuwarakha you are running, and I think it would be very helpful if you could share something about the program.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure and honor to be with all of you, and then congratulations to all the awardees as well for getting this Best Education Brand Award. So I'm Dhuwarakha Sriram, Chief of Generation Unlimited, which is called YuWaah, as well as looking at youth development and partnerships with UNICEF. I'm from Sri Lanka and been with UNICEF in many different countries. And when I was in India, one of the programs that I was looking at was in terms of adolescent development for children aged 10 to 19 years. One of the ways of how we were looking at it, and in India you have 1 in 4 girls still getting married. There are issues of child labor, unsafe migrations as well. When we were talking to them, education is available for most, but it's still, there are many children who are dropping out or out of school as well. So one of the things that they have been asking us is in terms of, if not for these issues of child marriage, child labor, unsafe migration for work, what are those access to information opportunities that we can have? So this is how Generation Unlimited at the global level was launched in 2018 by the Secretary General of United Nations as Generation Unlimited. In India, it was launched in November 2019 in the presence of Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development as well as UNICEF Executive Director. It's a public-private youth partnership platform. So at the global level as well as in India, it's the first time where we have young people at the center stage of those decision-making processes. It was, as I said, the agenda and the vision is till 2030 to ensure that every young person in India is connected with socioeconomic opportunities, and we partner them as agents of change. So we look at 3 main areas or verticals. It's kind of, for a young person, it's cross-cutting. One is in terms of economic opportunities, so looking at jobs, entrepreneurship, as well as apprenticeship. The second is in terms of providing them skills for life as well as for work and livelihoods. So looking at 21st century skills, including digital and financial skills, as well as career guidance and information. And the third pillar is how do we engage with them as social citizens. So looking at civic engagement, volunteering, and youth innovations. Now, YuWaah, as I said, brings all the different stakeholders together. So it's incubated by UNICEF, but we have different line ministries at national level as well as with state governments. We also collaborate with both global as well as local private sector partners, industry aggregators like CII, FICCI, DASCOM, civil society organizations and coalitions, academia, media, and then most importantly, young people themselves. In the last 2.5 years, we have been able to reach more than 25 million young people with various initiatives, been able to catalyze more than $16 million and collaborate with more than 100-odd partners across the country. Now, this is very critical and important because a single organization, even if it's UNICEF in India, or the government, or the private sector, or the civil society organization, cannot do this alone. It's a collective power that is really needed to bring about that transformation at scale, but at the same time, if we want to go deep and ensure that we're not leaving out any child or young person behind, you need to also work with different civil society organizations as well as with the government and private sector. So this is the whole idea of YuWaah, and we are here to collaborate with all of you and looking forward to seeing how we can transform and support as a child transitions from childhood to adulthood. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dhuwarakha. That's really interesting. Sudhir, first of all, congratulations once again for the award. And, weaving from there, what has changed? I think BITS Pilani, it's a great institute, and obviously we've seen, the tremendous work that you're doing. But in terms of the shift, just, post-pandemic, and I mean, where are you guys at?
First of all, thank you so much, and heartiest congratulations to ET for conducting this mega event. All the awardees, I think, who have been given the Best Brand Awards, I congratulate them. It's indeed a great pleasure to have the Minister of Education from Assam being present here for this panel discussion. So thank you, Rajat. I think before I just get into the pandemic or post-pandemic, let me just give you a little quick overview about what the BITS Pilani is all about and how adaptive we were, even though the pandemic hit us very hard. BITS Pilani as a brand by itself is in a different sense, it puts into a different league. It's a merit-based institute. Every year, 125,000 students appear to get an admission. Hardly 2% people make it. So it's understandable that around 3,000 students come in. The uniqueness about the BITS Pilani is that it has a flexible curriculum. We have a zero attendance policy. All right, it's very interesting that we are not forcing students to come to the class. If they feel like coming to the class, they come. They don't want to, that's it, no problem. So we have a very interesting formal and informal education system. And our USP has been, we have been called as the oasis in the desert, creating the startup factories. And you will be surprised to hear that BITS Pilani has produced so far the 10 unicorns, 1 decacorn, 2 US unicorn. We have a 7,500 founders and co-founders. In last 15 months, what you talked about the pandemic, let me just tell you that the 17 companies gathered $730 million fundraising. And this is something which is, again, in terms of the USP, why it happens like that in BITS Pilani, irrespective of what kind of a setup would be there. There's only one reason is that the students beyond the classroom, they have been provided the ecosystem. They have been provided all the support system through our internal courses, through our mentorship program of our alumni. You'll be surprised to hear that we have 150,000 alumni all over the world. And this makes it very, very different in the sense that in terms of a mentorship. The one another additional parameter which I feel is that we always believed in one thing, that we want to make our graduates socially relevant. And I'm very happy to share the stage with Dhuwarakha, actually, because she actually takes care of the segment which is the most relevant segment. And all the academic institutions and all other organizations who are here, they are with one purpose in their mind. They are trying their level best to be the best. They are trying level to contribute to this society. And as somebody said very rightly, that दुनिया न जीत पाओ तो हारो ना खुद को तुम, थोड़ी बहुत तो जहन में नाराजगी रहे.
Excellent. That was very inspiring, Sudhir. And I know this is a short session and we are maybe sort of between you and lunch. So we thought, we will pick up 4 topics and try and leave behind some key messages for the group. And, talking about youth aspirations and, enabling youth for the future, a very important aspect is work is getting integrated with education. So maybe Dhuwarakha, if you could sort of, share your thoughts and then we can come back to Sudhir.
I think this is a very important question. I think it's important that work does come in earlier and it gets integrated into the education system. I think somebody once asked me, when should career guidance start? And I think children as young as 10 are asking these questions. It's not so much in terms of what is it that you want to aspire to be. I think it's important for them to be provided with that information and then make a decision around it, right? Because otherwise they don't know where to seek this information as well. Most of the time they end up saying, I want to be a doctor or an engineer, or they see what other role models are available for them. At the community level, sometimes in rural India, it's an Anganwadi or a teacher. Not to say that these are professions you don't have to aspire to be, but they don't really know what else is out there, who are the other positive role models as well. So I think it's important, one, to ensure that we are looking at it not just in terms of work, education in silos, but understanding what are the needs and aspirations of young people, what are the challenges that they uniquely face, because that's their lived reality. And how do we really then facilitate that journey for them? So not to look at it in silos, look at it as a seamless journey as possible. How can we enable them in that journey? Second, I think it's really looking at 21st century skills. And I think we all have a different interpretation of it. A lot of education is here. I think it's important to define what is that 21st century skills. And this includes for us life skills, as I said, but also digital skills and financial skills as well. And it's important to note that this is not just for work, but it's also important for you as an individual and for work productivity for an employer, but also for the community at large, as you were talking about as well. I think it's important to realize that problem solving, critical thinking, communication, networking, these are all skills that is needed, especially in an ever-changing world. We know that COVID-19, we cannot predict what the future is going to be. So I think this is something that's critical for us to look at in terms of from education, from a young age to work, how do we really look at it? The second point I wanted to make is that we need to look at a merging of heart, mind, and hand. So a lot of the time as education, we do imbibe the mind part of it in terms of giving them that knowledge and information, etc. But we also need to look at integrating the values as well for young people to be part of that whole journey. And lastly, I think it's very important to put those theories into practice. So using your hands and having that experiential training as well is very important. As a part of that journey, again, it's not only work. And I think when people talk about work, they talk about the formal work system. And as I said, with India having 93% of its economy in the informal sector, we need to look at young people not only being job seekers, but being job creators. And I think India is that country that can really create that ecosystem to provide entrepreneurship as an aspirational opportunity for young people as well. One of the initiatives that we are doing is called Passport to Earning. At the global level, we have various private sectors come together, in India as well, and we are working with Ministry of Youth Affairs, Central Board of Secondary Education, Ministry of Skills Development, and a couple of state governments as well. It provides the 21st century skilling opportunities, and then they are being linked with opportunities for either jobs, apprenticeship, or entrepreneurship. On the other hand, if they want to do volunteering and civic engagement, that's also being connected. So I think it's important to really look at it. And my last point, when we are looking at this world of work and education, I think it's also important to look at what does it mean for different types of young people that we work with. A girl in tribal area, and as you mentioned, a tea garden, it's going to be very different. A young person with disability is a very different journey. And how can we as stakeholders come to be supporting that journeys of every young Indian? I think that's the critical part of it. Thank you.
Sudhir,
yeah. I think some of the things which Dhuwarakha highlighted, they are the segments which are very, very essential requirement for any graduate who goes out of the institute. But beyond that, what you said is the preparing themselves for the world. You need to really provide them a platform. The students really look forward to that kind of a training. The different trainings could be of different ways. It can be done in form of internships. Many of the academic institutions are doing it. Or maybe in terms of having the industry experiential people to bring them to the campus. So I will just share the success story from Pilani, because this has been, again, a very open example to, I think, emulate by any academic institution. And I'm very happy to share that. We have a concept of, we call it practice school. So every graduate student has to first spend 2 months after second year into the industry. So they are kind of exposed to the various industry. And towards the final year, they have to spend 5.5 months or 6 months into the industry. So they become industry ready. Okay, and this is something which is, we call it a practice school. People can define it a different way. But we have been doing this model for the last 3 decades, and it has been an absolutely successful model. And that is one of the reasons it becomes the most, the graduate becomes employable. And they are kind of people get, and to just give you one number, more than 800 people get a pre-placement offer, which is an index, which we talk about in terms of the employability of the graduates. So this is something we are very proud of. I think next one is the IIT Kharagpur, which actually gets around 350 PPO for undergraduate students. So this is one part. The second part is that the changing landscape and social sector has become a very, very important sector. And that is where we provide the platform to students to provide them the opportunity to explore. So let's say, for example, we have NSS, National Social Services, which is not a mandatory program. It is a voluntary program. And the students actually are getting into that by volunteering themselves to this and then getting to convert it into the social entrepreneurships and so on. So what I want to say is that at this point of time, this particular generation is a very different kind of a generation. They are extremely risk takers. They want to venture out. And one of the simple reasons, what I think somebody has said very rightly, धूप में निकलो, बहारों में नहा कर देखो, जिंदगी क्या है, किताबों को हटा कर देखो.
Excellent. So, Sudhir, while you're at it, online versus offline, I mean, any view on that? Because that's, or hybrid. Let me add that as well.
Yeah. So I think this is again, since we moved during the pandemic time from offline to online, this was a definitely very challenging time. But the best thing is the hybrid version, because online has a different good part and the offline has a different good part. So for example, in online, anywhere, anytime, this is a very good advantage you get. Best of the best academicians can be brought on board any part of the world, and you can bring those academicians for your course content. These are the experiences which you can get it in online, which is easily affordable, doable. On other side, in an offline mode, the most important part is that everywhere this is very essential that there is a holistic learning, there is a collaborations, there are group leading, be part of the group. All this learning is only possible when you really interact, eye contacts, the conversations, the dialogue, which it happens. So this is something which is very important. I come from an engineering background, so naturally you will require hands-on experiences. So hands-on, if you do not do the physical thing in your labs, then I don't think so. The virtual labs and all kinds of things, even you come talk about augmented reality, virtual reality, but still you do not have the feel of it. So you require even the offline mode. So what my take on this one is that let's go for a hybrid, take the best of both the world and make the best out of it.
Sure. Dhuwarakha, your view on this, and more specifically, I mean, the data that you guys look at in the YuWaah program, I mean, what is that suggesting as well?
I think I need to agree as well with Sudhir in terms of it is the best of both worlds. We can have a whole debate in terms of is it online or offline. And I think technology has been an enabler, and I think that has been a conversation as well. It brings its advantage in terms of making sure that you're able to reach everyone. You're also able to customize sometimes the learning pathways. For young people with disabilities, for example, it can be a problem because when you're in settings, it's very difficult to understand if a young person with disabilities is learning. But at the same time, you can have personalized, customized journeys for them using AI as well. At the same time, it shouldn't be one that exacerbates the divide that's already there. So how do we really work with partners to be able to ensure that it complements with the offline? There are a lot of advantage in terms of coming together, that collective learning, having that face-to-face communication as well. So I think it's important to have a mix of both of it. And I think it also shows with the data and evidence that both of them work. So how do we really learn from it? And we have a report that's just going to be launched next week, in 2 weeks' time, that looks at no-tech, low-tech, and high-tech, and which are the channels and what are the hybrid methodologies that really work effectively. So interesting findings are coming out. Please watch that space as well.
Excellent. That brings me to my next topic. And again, what is happening, with the digital revolution is, as well as the convergence of sectors, we are seeing the boundaries are getting a bit sort of, merged as well. So the boxed sort of, flow, which is, school, college, degrees, and then work, is getting a little bit sort of, transcending into each other. So from that perspective, and also keeping in mind the disruption which is happening. We have Ubers, we have e-com, we have so many examples, right, in today's world where, it's a newer business model. Nobody could have thought a Zomato or, of the likes. So, and linking it back into youth aspirations, because a lot of entrepreneurs have seen a lot of money, right? I mean, from these valuations and exits and all that. So what is also now coming out, and I think we wanted to get your view on, is formal education versus informal education. And which also, maybe I think if we can draw some sort of reference to the West and maybe the global education system in that sense, it'd be really helpful. And maybe Sudhir, you can start, and Dhuwarakha, you can add.
Okay, so it's a very interesting question, actually, because this is something which has been because I come from a very traditional, my learning, so I understand that we went through very formal educations, but this generations actually has a beyond the classroom many other things. Okay, and informal, whatever learning which happens, it's not necessarily to be within the campus. It can be even beyond the campus. And this is where actually this particular generation looks at exploring some worlds which actually they did not want to do when they joined the institute. Like, for example, every parents want their child to become XYZ. Okay, and this is something which has been there. But the student comes and they are looking for the platforms where they might come for the XYZ program, but they want to explore in ABC. And that is where the ABC they want to get into. What will happen is that this is something, the whole education systems has to evolve in such a way to provide that platform. In a Western world, let's say for example, even some of the things are done in a very differently. Like for example, if you want to take the students to the lab, okay, they will not go to the lab in a closed places. They will take them to the open spaces where they are learn collaboratively, pick up the things, do put the people together, do it differently, things explore differently, and so on. So these are the things which is actually informal education really helps in the process to develop the new products and new possibly the ventures. So my suggestion is that the institute should provide both the platforms in a equal ways, like a formal or informal. I'll give you one example. In BITS Pilani, what we have is that the Mini-Fest, even the mess services, which is absolutely handled by the students. Fully, the finances and everything. They decide the food, they decide everything. This is a major responsibility who is a young 18-year-old student entering into the institute. Now what he learns many things. How to run the financial management, how to manage the students, how to manage the requirement, and so on. These are the learning cannot be done in the classroom. These are informal learning, and that is where they get the ideas of becoming startups and using the technology and so on. So what I want to say, the institute will have to provide that kind of a platform with the ultimate faith in them.
I answered as well in my first response, where you need to bring the heart, mind, and hand as well. And I think, again, it's a debate that can happen between formal and informal, and I think both brings the best of both worlds. I think with the national education policy, we see a lot of changes that have happened, very positive as well, where formal education is taking into cognizance the need for informal education and some of the approaches therein as well. I think, for example, life skills is sometimes seen as extracurricular activities. Now it's being taken into consideration as part of the formal education. The fact that we need to look at experiential learning, I think that's also something going to be very important, because no longer should academic work be seen as just theories. And these are rote learning, and then you go for examinations. It shouldn't be that. I think there is a need for radical shift in terms of it's more about experiential learning and how you can start problem solving and thinking differently and answering it. That has a tremendous impact. Interestingly, for example, if you ask employers, what is it that you're looking for recently, it's not so much about degrees anymore. It's actually about the way that you think, and it's about the ability to learn and unlearn and relearn, rather than, whether are you an expert on a specific area per se. The world and it's changing, as Sudhir was saying as well.
Right. I think it's time for me to thank our panelists for an insightful session and thank the audience as well. Thank you so much.